instead of having the return of investment, the safety of investment becomes more important for the future and how to be ready for the future challenges. It is not about the present, but it is about for the future as well.
The social kind of responsibility and impact is one thing that can give back, but also making money at the same time. So the beauty about here is you've got social impact, legacy within the family point of view, and you've got one of the biggest platform network we can do business.
I think India is less geographically divided, but more demographically divided. So you have to figure out who your TG is, who's the target group, what is your audience for that product.
I always tell people that you don't go to India and teach how to do business. You learn from Indians how to do business. India is not a developing country, it's a differently developed country. If it has survived 5,000 years, it can survive another 5,000.
Maybe from the foreign country, Japan was not so attractive for past 30 years, but I believe for next 10 to 20 years, there is a huge potential to unleash the potential of the Japanese company.
Win respect of the leader, which by and large, the majority of the family trust with your decision.
I'm going to start with Hiro. Will you each please give a quick introduction of yourself and the work that you're focused on?
Konnichiwa. I'm from Japan. I run the Nintendo family office with the fifth generation of founding family of Nintendo. Unfortunately, when I was a child, I had to study so much and I couldn't play the game. So maybe you all are better than me at the Mario Kart. This is the first time I have never presented in English, so please bear with me and my crib seat.
Hey, that's okay. Not doing it in English. All right, let's pass it on.
Very quickly, Assalamu alaikum. This is Ahmet Aysan from Qatar, from Doha. I'm an associate dean at Hamad bin Khalifa University. I'm a former central banker. I was at the Central Bank of Turkey as a board member and monetary policy committee member. My interest in family offices are both in academic and in practice. So great to be here. Thank you for the kind invitation.
Welcome. Yes.
I'm Ramon Vega from Switzerland. My background is a little bit unusual one. I was a Swiss captain in Switzerland as well. I played 94, 96 European Championship. I've done the unusual way, going into the finance world, private equity, asset management, based in London. Yes, we're looking into, obviously, as a Swiss family office, that's the birth of family offices. So that's why we're here today.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Zulfikar Ghadiali. I am the executive director for the office of Sheikh Tahnan bin Saeed Al Nahyan in Abu Dhabi. Besides that, I'm also member of my own family office, which is of a real estate company in India called Lokhandwala. Most of you don't know about us, but we built the tallest building in India. And also a member of Commission for Peace of the United Nations and Global Ambassador of UN for Sustainability. Sustainability is the new smart. I hope you agree with me.
So you had to point out that you built the tallest building in India when you sit between a footballer and a movie star, right?
Had to look different.
Okay.
Tallest, biggest, largest. That's what Dubai is all about.
All right. We're not competitive up here.
Hey everybody, this is Vivek Oberoi. Started my career as a movie star, been there in Bollywood for 24 years. Also run my family office, and our focus areas are real estate. We do a lot of real estate in the Middle East and in India, but we also build companies out from scratch in India with startup ecosystems. We've built a fintech company that's doing very well, edtech company that's doing very well. And we look at new technologies, and sustainability is a big key factor in all our investments. We also look at traditional family businesses, which are zero debt, have potential to transition into the future, mainly based out of India, and then create a global mergers and acquisitions kind of story with a roll-up and take them public, getting them successful IPOs. So that's kind of the ecosystem we play in.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shajul Mulk. I'm the chairman of Mulk Holdings. I run a complex family wealth office with almost 400 years of ancestral wealth and the personal wealth that the group has accumulated over the last 4 decades of business. The Mulk International focuses on manufacturing activities and supporting assets. Now, manufacturing includes manufacturing the exterior facades, and we were the pioneers in this field, bringing that cladding to the country. And we can safely say that we have a 40% share of the UAE market as far as the facades are concerned. And we are a global player in terms of having manufacturing facilities in Europe, here, new ones coming from the US, in Africa, and India. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so family offices really, it's a bad description of what people do. What does a family office really mean? Some people think it's an investment arm. Some people think it's a concierge location. So there's a lot of confusion around that. As you all either work in family offices or your own, how did you set up your model? How did you think about going direct versus private equity and other things like that? Vivek, let's start with you. How did you decide your model, or did it evolve?
Well, look, I think the primary driver is what are your value systems? So if you want something to drive your values, that match is very difficult to find in a generic private equity. When you do your own family office, you get the opportunity of a few things. A, you're early in terms of the look that you get, especially when you're networking at places like Fort Capital, which allows you to meet other family offices that are, operating in different jurisdictions, and they have early access too. So it allows you early access, it allows you to be in sync with your values, and it gives you a lot of independence in terms of your decision making, especially if you have some sort of expertise in a domain. You can leverage that expertise. So being a Bollywood movie star, B2C is something that I understand really well. So where can I leverage that in a B2C play and then build on that with my financial expertise in other aspects of building value into a company? So those kind of elements that you get in a family office give you an exponential return in comparison with a passive investment in a larger structure. And places like this gives you access to so many opportunities. This kind of gives you that exposure and access, and it's also something that you sit among equals. There's nobody pitching each other. It's a collaborative effort. And I think that's the strength of what family office roundtables can do.
So that is a lovely position as the principal and the money maker. Hero works for a family in the family office. Hero, how do you interact with the family and their values?
Okay, so our representative, Banjo Yamauchi, he's the 5th generation of the Yamauchi family. He always asks me, you should focus on what is your goal, and through the investment, what will you change, and what will you impact to the society. Of course, there are so many opportunities in the world that makes the return or the money, but of course, as a professional, as a CIO, I bring the opportunity and do the due diligence, but every time I will discuss with the family and invest to the only what we can change.
Right.
So that is our strong philosophy. So we are now invest to the Japanese equity. Before the 2022, we invest in growth. Maybe the 90% of our portfolio allocation was in growth. But now, our more than 50% is in Japan. Yeah.
So you're betting on your country as well.
Yeah.
Dr. Ahmet, you study this field. In studying family offices, what do you see as the biggest weakness, like the thing that they're struggling with the most?
Thank you, Kristen. Let me bring some global picture also. The major challenges that we face today for corporations are not very much different from the family offices. I believe right now the major issue for many corporations and for family offices as well about the future readiness. The time seems to be passing much quicker than it used to be, and getting ready for the future is much more important. And getting ready for the future requires some sort of foresight and then to get ready for it. And in the past, we used to think about the companies, and the same thing for the families. They are just profit maximizers, but we don't think about the continuity of the business. But for the family offices, and it's related with your first question, for family offices, the major challenge is to remain the name. So it is not just one-time shot that you profit maximize and then distribute the share and the family members goes away. In 1970s, there's a literature came up about this survivalist firm. The main objective of the firms are not necessarily for maximizing the profit, but to keep the name alive, keep the name of the alive. And this is very important for the families because, especially in the region, we even remember the stories of the families from 200 years ago, 300 years ago, and especially with this information for the future generation, they will remember everything. So for the family offices, the major challenge, I believe, is to remain their reputation, to keep their name. And it is quite similar to the States. There is much more capital right now. In the past, the family businesses used to be small, but now they need to diversify more, they need to be more global. Instead of having the return of investment, the safety of investment becomes more important because future readiness also includes predicting the geopolitical tensions. Even the globalization is taking a different shape. The countries are becoming more nation-state oriented, but at the same time, the families are becoming more and more important because they operate in different spectrums. So for me, the major challenge is to get ready for the future and how to be ready for the future challenges. It is not about the present, as discussed before, but it is about for the future as well.
Okay, so Ramon, how do you go from being a football star to somebody in finance? I mean, that's just a big stretch.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Listen, Vivek and myself, we have a little kind of a similar path. The entertainment industry attracts everybody to start with. Everybody wants to be around you, see around you, be part of you. And when we're talking about football and generally sports, everybody in this room is a little kid. Simple as that. You give him a ball, he's compared to a little kid. So my journey, I was born and grew up in Switzerland, and I've done education in economics and banking. But I was very lucky and fortunate to play my hobby, my dream, my illusion. That's playing football. From a very young boy, I was dreaming to be at Real Madrid or somewhere in a very big club. In a small country like Switzerland, you don't export major players. So for me, it was already difficult. So for me to go to England, play for Tottenham Hotspurs, Celtic Glasgow, play in the Serie A in the big leagues in the world, be the captain of Switzerland, present them in the World Cup and the European Championship, it was the best ever can dream. And it's emotional. The sports gives emotion, social kind of responsibility, because you need to be responsible once you're on stage, what you're doing as a player as well. But at the same time, when you finish your playing football career, because you're not always young, you're not a little boy all the time, you need to mature. So the business side is always attracted already when I was playing football, and lucky I was educated in economics and finance. So I went to the asset management for nearly over 20 years, set up my own in London for close to 20 years. And because you're coming from a country of Switzerland, when we talk about family offices, that's the birth of family offices. Old-fashioned, old families created the preservation of their wealth for generations to generation, passing over. Some are better, some are less. So I know the complexity in terms of family offices, how the philosophy of them investing into businesses, you know. They are the very old-fashioned way, so they're not risking into certain investments. And that's why I took an advantage of leverage, like Vivek maybe as well. We leverage the network, what we've done during a football career. And I'm telling you now here, the biggest network, there's no family offices, no any businesses, maybe even not even government, football and sports is one of the largest networks in the planet. So when we're talking about football, it's one of the largest followers in the planet. 4.5 billion in the world loves and follows football. So can you imagine? Everybody wants to be part of that industry or be into it. They're waking up. They see that this industry is one of the biggest networks, socially, politically, and also very attractive from an investment point of view.
You know, if I can interrupt you, I worry a little bit about the fact that, at least in the United States, and obviously football in the United States means something different.
Soccer, by the way.
Yes, soccer. Families own all the teams now. And these teams have a responsibility to society.
Of course.
And so how do you feel about families owning teams that basically bring up or down a community?
Well,
Do you think it's dangerous?
No, it's not danger. Actually, this is one very important because if you talk in the preservation of any family office, their legacy is to keep, as you say before, is to keep it for the next 100 years, 50 years. They made money from a little kiosk shop over a period of time, suddenly it's an empire. So they started somewhere. So the social kind of responsibility and impact is one thing they can give back, but also making money at the same time. So the beauty about here is you've got social impact, legacy within the family point of view, and you've got one of the biggest platform network you can do business.
So
I'm giving an example.
I'm a believer, except, you know, I'm from Boston, so that's the Patriots. Robert Kraft got in trouble a couple years ago for doing something wrong. It reflected on the Patriots. Suddenly the owners are as important as the players with a brand. And so I think it's something, we'll come back to that, but I want to turn to you for a minute. What do you think is the responsibility to society that family offices have?
Well, Christina, I think for me, running a complex structure of a family office where I have to manage, like I said earlier.
What is complex? Come on, give us a little information.
For me, the complex is because we have 400 years of transitional wealth coming from generations.
How lucky is that to have 400 years of wealth? I'd like that. How about the rest of you?
Yeah, I think I was born into a family where, you know, the wealth kept transiting.
You didn't blow it.
Well,
Not
it's
yet.
an aristocratic family, so my ancestors were the rulers of Kurnool, basically. So there's a family wealth which has been coming, and me, myself, when I came to Dubai in 1982, 40 years, built a certain wealth. So I think this office manages both. You can imagine hundreds of family members and whose mindsets, whose philosophies, whose management style, whose appetite for risk, everything has to be considered.
Wow.
So when you handle that, I think what I found was to build trust in a way you show a transparency of your transactions, involvement in your decision making to the best possible. You can never make everybody happy. But then in the end, what actually transpired was a clear mandate to win respect. To win respect as a leader, which by and large, the majority of the family trust with your decision. Now today,
Trust is hard, and trust is really hard across generations. You want to keep the values of the family, but we also have to be a little progressive.
absolutely, I think that's where it is. My natural personality is to take risks. But then if you're handling your own wealth and taking risk is one thing, but then you're responsible for your family wealth and taking the risk too. So convert that and balance the risk-taking ability can only be over a period of track record. Today, the family is investing in Africa. Talking about Raymond and football, so I'll give you a small example. Back in 2017, we went disruptive in cricket. Cricket is normally about 4 hours long game. So we said, no, cricket needs to be 90 minutes, like football.
Could you do that for U.S. baseball? Because U.S. baseball is too long also. We need to shorten it. Sorry, all
Absolutely.
baseball fans.
No, I've done that in US,
Looks
by
like the
the way.
sports is the conversation, huh?
Takes forever to get to the ninth inning.
Yeah.
But go
last
ahead.
year we went to US.
Yes?
We actually launched the 90 minutes cricket in US as well. So my point here was, when you are taking risk of this disruptive nature, and then you're also handling the philosophies and the mindsets, yes, I think the whole thing in the end comes up with winning respect and trust. And if you can do that, I think you can successfully navigate through the, the management levels, basically.
Okay. All right, let's talk real estate. Family offices love real estate. And it's really hard for families to make good decisions on how to invest in real estate. They kind of invest, no offense, in projects that get put in front of them. How do you think about real estate in the family office?
That was the main reason of me coming in here with His Highness. I believe in creating value-added real estate. What Dubai stands for today is the value-added real estate, So when I told my family we're going to build the tallest tower in Mumbai, they said, well, there's already too much of supply in the market. I said, but everybody wants to stay in the tallest building. Now I'm planning 1,000-room hotel in city of Mumbai. JLL, PwC, KPMG, everybody said that's a mistake. There's so much of inventory coming around. I said, but everybody wants to stay in the biggest hotel of India. So that's how my vision is, to create value-added real estate.
Brilliant.
Like, for example, Paris you go, there's a diamond moving all over the city. But that's a landmark, right? So it's all about creating legacy through landmark developments, and which you leave it back to the society. But the problem with real estate developers is they're reinventing themselves every project to project. I'm not a believer of that. I believe in creating cash flows and create an operating income, so that helps you to create a legacy. For example, Imar, when they build buildings, they also create a property management company to create a source of income and the revenues coming in. So value-added services around real estate is the key for me when I look at real estate projects, especially.
Brilliant.
So real estate in India is something that I've actually had a lot of exposure to. And it's changed a lot in the last 10 years, where the developers are actually developing projects, not taking the money to go buy other pieces of land. How do you think about educating the general consumer of who to invest in real estate? Should it be somebody local? Like, how do you think about those different investments?
So I always tell people to look at the basic dynamics of the developer and the resilience of the developer's ability to deliver. And that's where, again, people are coming back to the bigger brands. There were times where even a guy who's in a diamond merchant, he started to start real estate. A textile guy starts to invest in real estate. People thought it's a no-brainer. You have money, you got land, and you build. Just get a contractor and a developer. But now, since the trust has become an issue, the delivery has become an issue.
Yeah.
The big boys are taking over all the smaller boys. But I believe that what has happened is, for us, even some of the biggest names in India, they come and tell us, what price are you opening this project at? I said, why you asked me this question? They said, because the price that you launch, that's 75% margins for you. While we, who acquire land now, the margin for us is only 15, 20, 30% max, because our land was acquired in 60s and 70s, where land was literally worth nothing in the city of Mumbai. And today we look at the slum rehabilitation, which is a biggest problem for Bombay, at the same time a biggest boom. We are the largest developer of the rehabilitation. And I give credit to my patriarch in the family who never went in a Bentley or a Rolls Royce in the slums. They went on a scooter or a Vespa and sat down with them and had a local food with them and asked them what are their problems. While other developers went and said, well, I'm going to give you 5 square feet more or 100 square feet more, we were the ones who said, no, I'm not going to give you extra square footage, but I'm going to build a old age home for your old people. I'm going to bring a maternity home for your women and a school for your children in the same complex. Because if they were so commercial minded, they would not be living in the slums. They're in the slums because they are not satisfied with their basics in life. So give them the basics and they'll be with you forever.
Brilliant.
So,
I think that's what brings people to us.
Yes, well, we've been talking about India a fair amount. And one of the things that I am sensitive to is that India has really created a middle class recently. And so that would be a place you'd want to invest, because there's a middle class, there's more people. And this is open for all of you, how do you sit and think about where you want to invest, and how do you make those decisions?
I think, Christina, for that, you got it right. The middle class income is is growing, and all statistics I can say is India is going to be one of the largest growing economies in the world. And from our perspective as well, we have a manufacturing unit in India, but then now we're looking at a completely different scale. So we're looking at putting up. Now, for your question of how to determine, I think a lot goes also into each state in India has a different benefit levels. Of course, market in India is centralized, but then don't forget, India is also so large. Some of the businesses might need multi-state establishment approach. Because if you want to be a large player in India, and you want to have a fair share of the market, so we are looking at multi-state.
But I almost mean in general, if you sit there every year and you look at your portfolio and you say, I want to rebalance or change part of my portfolio, do you follow the market in a way, or do you find leading indicators? Like how did you decide to start investing in diamonds?
Sure.
Like out of the blue, did you like them, or what was the reason?
No, look, I'll explain that to you. But to answer the earlier part of your question, how do you approach India? Because it's potentially one of the biggest opportunities for the next 2 or 3 decades. The two approaches you want to take is, one is directly if you're looking at a specific business. I think India is less geographically divided, but more demographically divided. So you have to figure out who your TG is, who's the target group, what is your audience for that product, right? The second aspect is, are you looking at purely the equity markets? Because when I was studying in college and I wanted to dabble in equities with whatever money I would earn with my side hustles while I was putting myself through college, it was impossible because a broker would ask me to open an account with a minimum amount of upfront payment. But today, the Robinhood effect through Zerodha in India has created phenomenal participation, which is why you're seeing a $4 trillion a market emerging and growing, because the participation of regular people, especially Gen Z, the youth, is growing exponentially compared to generations earlier. Because they can enter now with less than $1,000 and be a part of the market, get data, get analytics, all of that through AI and through a simple subscription that are mostly free.
It's become democratized.
So it's become democratized, right? Participation's opened out. So that's increased the funnel. So that's the equity story. No matter what you do, volume on the equity is going to grow. So therefore, the markets are going to be buoyant. Now, you got to pick and choose what's working there. Now, when you talk about an emerging middle class, what happens is expendable income increases.
Exactly.
The minute the expendable income increases, everything that they've been holding back, I want to own a car, I want to own a diamond set, all these things start to become a reality. That's why you'll see great multiples on FMCG. You'll see great multiples on fashion. Why is suddenly every single fashion brand in the world looking at an entry point into India, and why is Reliance taking a piece of that pie? They don't do anything unless they see a phenomenal future in it. Why did I do diamonds? I liked the ethical idea because loved diamonds, saw the movie, saw Blood Diamond, saw the pain and agony it can cause, didn't like that, decided not to wear jewelry with diamonds for a really long time until lab-grown diamonds emerged. Now, India inherently has an unfair advantage because for 3,000 years, we've had the best diamond cutting and polishing industry. 3,000 years, right?
It's a long time.
Really long time.
You win.
And the past 1,000 years has been absolute and complete dominance in this space. So even if Antwerp was the largest trade hub, the cutting, polishing would still happen back home. Now what happens is, we didn't have the raw material. And now we're creating that in a laboratory in an ethical way. That appeals to the whole Gen Z market. So today, the older customer at my stores comes in and says, I don't want anybody to know it's a lab-grown diamond. And you know, the interesting thing is how fast it's changing, because now the youth comes and says, I want to tell everybody that I'm wearing this for ethical reasons, so I enjoy this jewelry more. And this is across the world. Like I said, we're in 5 countries, 25 cities, and we're seeing this trend across the youth. They want to champion this, right? It's the other way around.
I think I might be going diamond shopping later. I don't know if anyone else in the audience wants to come with me.
And the other aspect of it was, what I predicated was that somewhere the shift is happening faster. Because a couple of years ago when GIA certified that these are real diamonds, the only difference is if you have a baby with a natural birth or if you have an IVF baby. Is one a fake baby and the other a real one? No. They're all your children, right? So diamonds are the same way in the lab-grown story. That's the whole idea. And that's why I decided to pick this company, and it's grown exponentially in just 2 years.
That's wonderful. So how about the rest of you down there? How do you think about investments? How do you think about who you want to collaborate with? How do you approach that in this space? Anybody can answer.
Shall I take? Yeah, well, I think it's very, very important. One part of the collaboration of any potential investment decision is geographically, where do you want to invest, first of all? Politically, kind of the risk side point of view, and the macroeconomics within where you want to invest into it. But the key part of any collaboration or investing or partner is the emotional connection with that person. And also the management where actually potentially runs. If you go abroad and it's your different territorium, I had exposure in India already in 2004, 5, 6. We had a large real estate fund in there. And what we studied, because the Indian culture is one thing, they want to preserve the wealth for the family, but also make sure the kids have their apartments and their kids have another apartment. So once you understand the culture of that country, you see the economics behind the real estate as well. So we actually looked at that part, was a decision-making part. So if you go to the outskirts of Mumbai, New Delhi, Calcutta we're exposed just on the outskirts, but the experience, it was valuable because it was not like in Europe or potentially the US, but it was in the old-fashioned way in the US and Europe, but they were still behind how to do it. So for us, it was important we had a very local kind of connection. We trusted the person on the ground. That's the most number one thing you need to have. And number two, does it make sense on the growth and the multiplier? Because you need to see the risk. If you go emerging market, 2 times, it's not worth it for me. Simple as that.
Yeah.
It has to be at least X8.
So one of
Simple
the
as that.
things that we're getting at here is family offices have the ability to have a very different duration than other investment vehicles. And so in my opinion, family offices are disrupting private equity immensely, both in direct deals and in private equity funds' ability to raise funds, because you're not being LPs anymore, you're doing it yourself. What do you all think about that space? Do you feel that long-term you don't want to be in private equity anymore? Is there a big move? Anyone can jump in.
I'll take that question. It's predominantly the problem that we face at the Royal Office in Abu Dhabi. A lot of funds pitch into us, and we trusted some of these funds, and we went in the blind pool. By sheer nature, not that we want to dominate the project or teach the team better than that we can do better than them. It's because we don't want to lose our reputation as a Royal Family Office. Right. That's more critical to us. You lose money for me, no problem, but don't ruin my name. That's always the instruction from His Highness to me. You know? So it's the perspective where we don't want to be blindsided. We want to be ensuring that the money is going in the right place and it's not used for bribery. Lobbying is fine, but it's not used for wrong efforts. And coming to your point on India, I always tell people that you don't go to India and teach how to do business. You learn from Indians how to do business. India is not a developing country, it's a differently developed country. If it has survived 5,000 years, it can survive another 5,000. Problem with Westerners and especially the funds is that they come and teach Indians how to do business. And my experience as a Royal Family, which is an Abu Dhabi-based entity, when I went with my Abu Dhabi logic, it never worked for me. Then I had to wear my Indian hat and worked with them in an Indian way. And that's how things happen.
Correct.
So that's my suggestion to anyone. And same goes for Africa, or old cultures. Greece or
I think
Persians,
that's
the same
very
way.
well said, and I do think
But that goes to
Westerners
any country you
have
go
wanted
into.
to.
Simple. You have to respect.
Japan too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean,
I just wanted to add a bit to what you said earlier, Christina, in terms of, look, I don't think it's going to be cannibalistic, private equity versus family offices. I think it can also be synergistic.
It can.
So today, if somebody knows that I have a very strong insight into India in a certain sector, then private equity can say, listen, we'd love to see what you're looking at in your portfolio, and we'd like to come in and piggyback on your deal. And there's a potential collaboration there, where now you have a larger pipeline of wealth. You don't have to wait for another larger event. You can create a liquidity event from your portfolio with them. So a lot of potential upside to it when you look at it synergistically rather than from a perspective of being cannibalistic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the
Side
partnering.
perspective,
Yeah, go
We were
ahead.
doing a deal in Philippines. One of the company went to set up agriculture SEZ. But because we deal with the government there and we know that 90% of the milk in Philippines is imported. So because we knew that data from the government, we went and guided the fund that let's not just do agriculture SEZ, let's do a milk-based, dairy-based SEZ.
Brilliant.
And we guided them and we piggybacked, like you rightly said. So that's the right approach, going together.
Go ahead.
Just mentioned as well in terms of collaboration between the private equity family offices. The key part to collaborate with private equity firms, the big ones we're talking, with names, I'm not going to name it now, is one part the family office is struggling is because they're not exposed from family and perception. They're just maybe a small in brackets, but then nobody knows the wealth behind that. So when they want to go into the business and say they have a BDA, KKR or Blackstone, then immediately people are taking them more serious. Actually, they could do themselves do it, than family, but they're not shouting what they have. So the family office sometimes are struggling to have that collaboration. It's important to have that private equity as a partner, just an anchor, just to give that, not credibility, but just to say, if it's government kind of infrastructure projects, you know how it works. You need to have a good name, background, and of course you need to have the money behind that, you know? And family office sometimes struggle to get certain deals involved if they don't have private equity beyond.
I do agree, by the way. I mean, they are more of a complementary items. But overall, as a model, I believe in the past it was more of a return. So for private equity companies, there is one objective. But as you rightly mentioned, right now, even for the sustainability, climate change related discussions, right? We don't have just the return discussion. There is not just one common objective. The families might have different objectives. They might have different values. So they might be concerned about the sustainability. They are more concerned about their names, reputations. So there are multiple objectives. When there are multiple objectives, family offices are more fitting because you cannot just give it to the private equity because it's as if they have only one mandate of profit maximization. But for the family offices, there is much more oversight needed. And this will be the trend because this is the case that anymore the return only is one dimension. But the safety of the return, reputation, sustainability, the moral values. The family offices, I believe that they were more working like states. For the states, the only objective is not about growth, right? It's about the development. There are much more dimensions to growth and for economic progress. I believe that's why the family offices will even rise more. And also at the same time, it is a power. As it is mentioned in the previous session, why do you want to just delegate it to the others? Because delegate the power to others. Increasingly more in a postmodern world, you engage with the other families. You invest in other countries, not necessarily for the return, but to increase your power in your country and also globally. And we observed this in the recent years, right? When the Russian crisis happened, some of the families were relatively more protected from Russia. Why? Because they had their collaborations in other countries. And the same thing for the families in the region. Much more collaborations globally needed because the globe seemed to be much more multi-centered. It is not anymore that we have certain financial centers. As mentioned, I mean, Asia is rising, China is playing a more role. There is much more export from the region to the Asia. So this sort of things does not just make us to value the things in the monetary return. It's a more long-term, sustainable safety of the investment sort of return will become more important. So in that sense, anyway, we need family offices, and they will be complementing the equity investment.
Definitely. Hiro, let's get you back into this conversation. How do you network with other family offices from Japan?
Yeah, that is very important question. Same as others, we think the trust is everything. So the most important things is building a network with others, especially with other countries. So we are expert investing in Japan, and we know how huge potential within the Japanese company. I mean, the last year, Warren Buffett mentioned that Japan is hot to invest.
And all the prices went up.
yeah. I'm thinking, oh, Warren Buffett follow me. But actually, yes, there is a huge opportunity. In Japan, there is a lot of companies that have a more than 100 years history and the technology, know-how, operational excellence. But for the past 30 years or 40 years, that all cheap. But last year, there was a two policy change. One is like Tokyo Stock Exchange announced price book change guideline, and the second is a takeover rule guidelines change, and that makes huge impact to the Japanese corporate. So now Japanese corporate have to think about how to improve their return on invested capital, how to reward to the shareholder, that kind of things. So maybe from the foreign country, Japan was not so attractive for past 30 years, but I believe for next 10 to 20 years, there is a huge potential to unleash the potential of the Japanese company. But we know the Japanese company and we trust it by the corporate Japan, but we don't know, we don't have the network to like roll out the product or roll out the service to the, of course, UAE or the other countries such as India.
Well, we're going to come to you and figure out how we can co-invest with you in Japan.
Yeah.
Because you know that, and I don't think anyone else on the panel really understands that, but it is an important place. How do you think about who you choose to co-invest with? Do you look for somebody like Hiro in a country and say, here's some money? Or is it just happen naturally? You meet them on a panel and you do it? How do you do it?
Yeah, Christina, I think when you talk about networking, and then you say events like this are a perfect opportunity how you actually explore and interact with different family offices. Now we learned something different from Hiro here, right? And then all of us sitting here or in the hall have our own inherent capabilities, our networking strengths. Like some might be very strong in Africa, some might be very strong in Europe, and so on and so forth. I think for our perspective personally, from my family wealth offices, strategic partners which align with your vision, which align with your objectives, and we're all about sustainability. I think you touched a little bit on the private equity before. The philosophy normally of private equity is, what's the exit strategy? How do we come in and get out ASAP? But then when we talk about the family offices and sustainability, I think your potential partners need to align with what your end goal objectives are. And that's where it's a matter of interacting, matter of talking to people, understanding whether there's an alignment of your visions and your objectives, basically.
As we conclude this program, when family offices set up, you really need to start with the mission. What is the mission of this family office? So in these different cases, we've heard different missions. The mission will directly impact what your business plan is and who you hire. So in Vivek's case, he wants to do a lot of social good as well as making money. And so his mission is both. His business plan will be to invest in businesses that provide jobs, produce cash flow, and contribute to society. And then the team that he would hire would execute on that. The thing about family offices is everyone is individual. And so you do need to find like-minded ones if you want to collaborate. And I want to thank our guests up here, and we'll turn this back over. So thank you.